sometimes I don't even know how to explain it all. I just know that the people I serve with who are most enamored with Jesus in a fresh way, I can feel it in their playing and singing. I can hear it in their prayer. When they sing the song, it resonates deeper because it's coming from a deeper place of authenticity. I think don't overthink it can be helpful on Easter. We all feel this pressure of because it's the biggest Sunday, everything has to be the best it's ever been. And at times that drove me to do things that were a little bit outside of what was the wisest thing to do. Like give the people the staples, the ones they know by heart. That can just be a really good play on Easter.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Worship Fuel. My name's Matt McCoy. I'm the host of Worship Fuel, and I'm the founder of loopcommunity.com. And I'm so excited about this conversation today. I've got Aaron Williams with me, and he's been a previous guest on the Worship Fuel show, but we were like, we've got to bring him back and talk about his latest song and kind of dive into some more topics related to worship leading and songwriting. So I'm really excited about this conversation. Aaron Williams, worship leader, songwriter, artist. Let's go ahead and bring him in now. What's up, Aaron? Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining Worship Fuel. So it's been, I think, over a year since you've been on here last. You released your album, and a lot has happened since. You've relocated. You have released some more music. And I just want to hear from you've done a ton of worship leading. You've been doing a lot of new projects in the past couple of years. What has caused you to want to, when you went from worship leader to actually artist, what made you want to do that, and how has that impacted your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have always felt like I've been these two parts of me, if you will. Right when I graduated college, I almost moved to Nashville because I wanted to be a songwriter.
Yeah.
And the reason I didn't is because I was a part of a great local church in Arkansas. And I just felt like, man, this is where my heart's at. I love to pastor people.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, all of my songwriting is kind of geared toward the local church. And so I chose to stay in Arkansas, which was a great decision for me. And for the next, more than a decade, served at Fellowship Bible in Little Rock. And all along was writing songs and kind of doing artisty things, if you will. I was traveling and leading worship while I was also super plugged in to my local place. That's what my vocational life looked like. And over time, what happened is I started to have some successes as a songwriter, and I also began to take on more of a load through my job with the church. And eventually I was overseeing worship and production across 6 campuses. Our church was a multi-site church. And those two things, began to fight for my time. And I found myself, like probably many people who are listening, loving to do creative work and increasingly in managerial kind of work, with multi-site and production and just coaching younger worship leaders. And so it was really a heart torn, in a lot of ways of what do I do with this? And
Yeah.
eventually decided that the Lord was kind of giving me the green light. I would say even maybe pushing me, uh, prompting me to spend more time in songwriting. And so that was a big decision. That was like a year of prayer and discernment with my wife and the elders of our church. And 4 years ago, stepped away from that, began to pursue writing music. And what's interesting is I really don't see myself having changed much because all along I'm still leading worship. I probably lead more Sundays now than I did when I was full time at the church because I, had to be at different campuses and things like that.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
main shift has been which one of these kind of vocationally is paying the bills, so to speak. And I've just moved to where a lot of my time at the church is part-time now. Still lead a ton, but I give most of my time during the week to songwriting and
Yeah.
quote unquote artist type related things.
Yeah. That's got to be a blessing. So you kind of got out of the spreadsheets and now more into your journal, more songwriting. And That's got to be a great way to spend your day. What church are you involved in right now?
Well, I just moved here to Franklin, so I mean, when I say just moved, like 6 weeks ago, so
Yeah,
we're
fresh.
kind of figuring our life out here. I was a part of a church called Highland Park Presbyterian in Dallas, uh, and I kind of, fell into that church's leadership just through a friend of mine who was the coordinator there who had vocal cord surgery. It's like, "Hey, can you lead for a couple Sundays? I'm not gonna be able to talk after the surgery," you know?
Yeah.
And a couple Sundays turned into, like, 6 months because her surgery was harder than expected,
Mm.
and that place ended up becoming our home, and it was a wonderful community. I didn't grow up Presbyterian, so, like, getting to serve for almost 4 years in a stream of the church that was different than what I grew up in was actually really, really great, and I learned a lot. I came away with a different perspective in some ways
Mm.
on how to lead worship in a slightly different context than I grew up in, and so we're trying to figure that out here in Franklin, over the next, little bit of time, but there's so many wonderful churches to be a part of.
Yeah, that's awesome. How often do you think you'll be playing like on a Sunday morning at a church?
You know, what I did when I was in Dallas and I've kind of fallen into a little bit here in Franklin, I think it'll be probably 2 to 3 times, 2 to 3 times a month. Some of
Yeah.
that is, I think the longer you go in ministry, at least I'll just speak from my own experience, you can kind of figure out the parts of the job of the role of the worship leader that you really thrive in and that,
Hmm.
you can do a lot of without it really sucking energy too much from your life. And then there's these other parts that you're like, you know, I'm not as good at that. And I think for me, one of the things I've realized is leading on Sunday is actually one of those pieces that, I can do a lot of, and that's not the most exhausting part to me. And
Yeah.
so, I've been able to tell my church like, "Hey, um, I can be up 2 to 3 Sundays, um, like, I can do that far more than I can do the planning and the planning center for, the scheduling, kind of the
Yeah.
managerial aspects of the team." And the great thing is our church has, other people that help with that kinda stuff, you know?
Yeah. And that is a beauty. That's amazing because I feel like when you can get other people to, come alongside, I feel like you're also, it's a way to raise up other people
Yep,
to, give them a spot to belong. It makes me think about, I'm doing auditions at a Christian school for a worship band.
'kay.
And they're like, well, what do we do? And they're asking me, they're like, what do we do with the people who like audition that just like are not going to make it? And I'm like, well, sadly, a lot of churches just are like, hey, can't make it. That's it. Sorry. We got better people who can play. But I'm like, there's always a role you could give them. Like
Yeah,
they could be a part of the team. Maybe they're not going to be like on stage playing, but maybe they're like helping you schedule volunteers, or they're helping run sound, or they're helping like as a stagehand, or they're helping with getting the sheet music all out to all the band members, or they're helping with
yep,
the slides. I mean, there's so many things. Or they're helping you build the tracks. Like there's got to be something in the worship space. Maybe build like I'm encouraging them to build like a youth choir. Like for all
yeah,
the people who like want to sing that maybe can't be like the lead vocalist, I'm like, let's take them and build like a youth choir where they can all like sing on stage once a month or something. But there's always a way to get people involved. And it
absolutely.
helps lighten the load too for you.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know what? Even, like, one of the guys that I've been on staff with at the church in Texas, his name's Caleb, we're kinda wired the opposite because he would look at me and go, "Man, I love organizing the team. I love, pulling the tracks together and getting the charts to the band," and he likes leading from stage, but he was kind of,
Hmm.
like, really happy to be, a quote and don't take this the wrong way, but a number 2, like
Yeah.
a supportive role. And so we just found this awesome thing where I was like, you know, honoring toward him of like, "Man, you can do some of those administrative tasks so much quicker and more efficient than I can."
Yeah.
And that's a huge blessing to this ministry. And then I might have some gifts that, from the stage, um, are a blessing to the church that maybe aren't his strengths. And so we just, have tried to find the way God's gifted people complementary and work in that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are some ways that worship leaders could better pastor their teams to build community and pour into them? Do you have any practical tips of like, how do
Yep,
you pastor them? Not just like, hey, here's the songs, here's the playlist, make sure
yep.
you learn your part, but how do you actually like build community and pour into these people as Christ followers?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways. The quickest thing that comes to my mind is, you think about a shepherd spends time with the sheep,
Hmm.
and it's not that we're necessarily this like chief shepherd and, the people on our worship team are sheep, but I do
Yeah.
think that principle of like uh a lot of times, at least in the churches I've served in, rehearsals kind of need to be dedicated to mostly to like rehearsing the music, preparing for Sunday, running through the order of worship, things like that. And I can, I can create a little bit of time in the margins. Maybe you begin your rehearsal with a little bit of connection time. Maybe you end it with connection time. But the most helpful thing has been finding, scheduling even times to hang out and spend time with one another, not
Hmm.
not on Wednesday night rehearsal or not on Sunday morning rehearsal, because I always felt like, the communal aspect was getting the back seat to making sure that we were
Yeah.
sharp musically. So, for like the churches I've been serving in, we schedule that stuff out and we do like a quarterly gathering. With the size of this team, we can do it at someone's house. And, this time of year, it's like, hey, we're going to grill out, we're going to have some food, we're just going to hang and get to know one another.
Yeah.
Uh, and then maybe there's a secondary, like, and we're going to worship and pray together, and I'm going
Yeah.
to share some vision. But what's interesting is a lot of the people on your worship teams don't get to spend that much time together because
Yeah.
let's say, if you're the drummer, you probably don't get to hang with the other drummer that often because you're not serving on the same Sunday. And
Right.
when we started doing that, we would have a lot of our team members who were just like, "Yeah, I've seen him or her up there singing and leading, but because we haven't been on the team at the same time, we've just never gotten to get to know one another that well." So, I've
Yeah.
tried to create that third option, and
Yeah.
at our church, we do that 4 times a year.
Hmm.
One of those is a little bit more like a full day of training and stuff like that. You know, so I would just encourage, worship leaders
Yep.
to think creatively along those lines.
Yep. Three thoughts popped in my head while you were talking about that because I think that is so right. The third option idea. I was reminded back when I used to lead worship at Willow Creek, we always went all out on food. What's up with these green rooms that are just like, like little packets of Cheez Its and like a couple like nuts? Like, we were like, you know what? We're going to like really use this time. We're all together for hours, like literally like Saturday night service, all day Sunday almost doing services. We're together all the time
Yep,
in this room, waiting in between services or whatever. Let's really use it to build community. So we would cater in lunches, cater in breakfast, like good food,
yep,
and made it like a hang time to really connect with the band. I think churches should not be cheap about the
yeah,
snacks in the green room and like pour into your people that way.
yeah, we did the same thing at Fellowship, the church I was serving at in Arkansas. We would use a decent part of our budget for food,
Yeah.
and, we did a midweek rehearsal, so we did Wednesday nights. I think it was, I don't know, 6 to 7:30 or something like that, and at 5:30, we would offer dinner to whoever was serving in tech and
Yeah.
band. And, if you've got a fairly large team, that ends up being, could be
Yeah.
12 people by the time you've got a band plus some tech volunteers. So, as you can imagine, if you do that 52 times a year for Sundays,
Hmm.
that's a pretty big part of your budget, and every year we would come back to it and we would be like, "Man, should we allocate those dollars to different things? There's so many things that we could do." But we kept doing it because of what you just said.
Yeah.
Having half an hour, and we encouraged our team, "Please don't view this as, like, the optional part. Like, be there for dinner, sit down, pray,
Yeah.
get to know one another, like, this is a moment for us." And,
Yeah.
so because of that, I know every church may not have that budget. If you're at a smaller
Hmm.
church, have that budget, it might be Little Caesars pizzas instead of super
Yeah.
nice.
And maybe it's once a month.
Yes, but you can again, that think creatively, how can you create that moment? I would think your team is probably just happy that you're thinking creatively and you're caring and you're asking
Yeah.
questions and you're trying to get them to connect, more than they are concerned about, is it Little Caesars or, a
Yeah.
salmon fillet from somewhere.
Yeah. The other thing I used to do during that time is after parties. So after our Wednesday night rehearsal, there'd be an optional after party. And he'd be like, hey, we're all going over to Pinstripes to bowl. If you want to come join us, food is on us. Or hey, we're going to go over to this restaurant. We're going to go play mini golf here. Or just something like, just
Yeah,
something. And it wouldn't even have to be crazy. It would just be like an additional hour. Because I know
yeah,
that too, it's, you're asking a lot of your teams to take the time out of their schedule to do a midweek rehearsal. But maybe it's like Saturday night, after the Saturday night service, there's an
yeah.
optional after party just for the worship production teams to build
That
relationship. My cat really wants to be a part of this interview. This is Florence.
I
Say
was gonna
hello.
say, hi, Florence. Yeah, no,
So,
I think that's a great idea. I'm gonna steal some of those ideas myself because, yeah, it's like everyone might not be able to take you up on it every time, but if 2 or
yeah,
3, half the team are able to, I think the biggest takeaway for me is those times are they rarely feel wasted because
yeah.
if I get to have 2 or 3 conversations about someone's life, um, and that always happened for me, and one of my friends, his name's Michael Bleeker, you guys he's well known in some worship leading circles. Michael is the best that I've ever been around when it comes to caring about the life of the people on his team. And
Mm,
one of the things that he's just good at is you'll be sitting there having a cup of coffee or maybe you're bowling and he'll just ask you, "Hey, how's your family doing? If you're married, how's your marriage doing?" And he'll get into the deeper things of life and he has told me before like, "Man, you wouldn't believe how many deep conversations about real life stuff have like uncovered during those times where I've been playing music with this person for months at a time, and I never knew because Sunday morning is so about caring for
hmm.
and serving that, like, I never had a time to
Yeah,
ask questions, but then when we get in that 3rd space, so to speak,
yeah,
I had I had a moment to ask, and now I know how to pray for, my drummer in a deeper way, and
yeah,
yeah, so I've learned a lot
man.
from guys like him and you on how to care, but those it's like those are the little things. I think people are way more likely to share stuff like that, maybe at a bowling alley or
Yeah.
having a meal than just circling up on a stage and praying for
Hmm.
minutes.
It is like what Paul writes about, where he's like, make the most of every opportunity.
Yep.
And are we making the most of every opportunity? These little third moments where you're connecting with a band member, maybe it's in a green room or you're getting a cup of coffee, you actually can waste those moments. And what I mean by that is you can waste those moments by talking about nothing. You could waste those moments about just like talking about the weather and talking about like very surface level things, but you could make the most of the opportunity by, like what you just said, asking the deeper questions, asking,
Yep.
hey, how are you doing? Like, how's your soul? How's your family? How's your relationship with your kids? How are things going with you and your wife? Like,
Yep.
how's your time management you feeling?
Yep.
Like, are we stressing you out? Is the church burning you out? Like
Yeah.
really asking real questions.
And
Let's
those
make
are
the most.
yeah, I mean, all the things you just said, it's like those are things that shepherds, pastors
Yeah.
care about. And
Yeah.
so, I just had to ask myself all the time, like, "Hey, am I being intentional and proactive? Do I really want to get to know these people?"
Yeah.
And, I would say if you're a worship leader listening to this, it's not uncommon for us to be really focused on the music. I mean, we love the music. We
Yeah.
but for me, I've had to back up from that and go, "Okay, I can still be super focused on the music and the excellence and the production of what we're doing." And then just as focused on the hearts and souls of the people that I'm doing it with,
Yeah.
um, and that's just as important.
I think the reason this type of stuff does not happen enough is because we end up caring more about the music than the people. And
For
I
sure.
think if we can change that shift, make a shift, like you were just saying there, where we care more about the people than the music, we could really
Yeah.
have those opportunities.
Yeah. Well, and
At least, yeah.
the deeper thing I've noticed, and I bet you've experienced this as well. There is this unseen spiritual reality of how we're actually doing, if we're flourishing in Christ or not, affects somehow how you play guitar, affects how you play drums, it affects how you sing.
Hmm.
And so I've had to realize that, like, a lot of that gets ignored because it's unseen, but if I can help my team realize that your spiritual health has a direct correlation into
Hmm.
how you lead and play. And sometimes I don't even know how to explain it all. I just know that the people I serve with who are most enamored with Jesus in a fresh way, I can feel it in their playing and singing. I can hear it in their prayer. When they sing the song, it it resonates deeper because it's coming from a deeper place of authenticity. And that's true in my own life. So, that's where I try to encourage our team of, like, hey, don't believe the lie for a second that it's only your talent that matters here. Um, and I think this is true of songwriters. Our
Wow.
songs come from our souls in some way, and I believe the best songs come from the healthiest leaders. And that doesn't mean that in an unhealthy season I can't write a good song. It just means that I should always be aspiring toward a healthy soul and a healthy
Hmm.
heart toward the Lord.
Wow, man. That is a that's a really solid thought there. That's a whole book right there of the correlation
I
between,
wish I had some sort of scientific evidence. That's the part. It's like you don't really even know how to quantify it, but we've all experienced it.
yeah.
And
I
so
mean,
it's
you
like
could do a case study.
that would be fascinating. Maybe we
That's
should figure
It's
out
like a
how to do
Malcolm Gladwell piece right there. We need the Christian Malcolm Gladwell to do that. That's a
that.
really interesting thought and totally makes a lot of sense. And even as you were talking, I was thinking of like different people that I've played with in bands where I'm like, wow, that is true. Like the people who were really struggling or were almost making it more of a performance, or the people who were more of like just where it feels like they're just not authentic in a way,
Yeah.
it does reflect their spiritual life.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to think about. And so what we need to be making the most important thing. And that's nourishing the souls and the lives of our people.
Yep.
Everything we do at Loop Community is about making things easier for the worship leader. We
Yep.
don't want a worship leader to spend 10 hours a week staring at a computer screen building their tracks. I want a worship leader to spend an hour preparing their tracks so that then they can use the remaining 9 hours sitting over a cup of coffee with a worship leader.
Yes.
And I mean, how many hours are we spending staring at a computer screen versus looking into the eyes of our bass player?
Yeah. I mean, and from one worship leader to you guys, thank you for what you're doing, because that is so true. And with the pace that technology is developing, it can be hard to keep up. I mean, I think especially if you were a bivocational worship leader, or, someone who had, another job, and maybe you're just a great volunteer, like, you have the time you have is so precious to be able to give it, to people is really where it's at. I
Yeah.
think it's where the good stuff is.
Yeah. All right. Well, I find that very challenging. Let's make the most of every opportunity there in those third
Yeah.
options. There's ways to do it. And I think just making the effort goes a long way with people.
Yeah, me
All right, let's
too.
talk about your new music. You released a new song. It's called Resurrection Hope. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Resurrection Hope. This song is, for anyone who listens to it or has heard it, the song is, up tempo, anthemic, kind of bullseye for Easter, if you will, but it came out of, like, the opposite moment in life. It actually came out of the church I've been talking about, Highland Park Presbyterian, where I was serving at. It came out of the loss of our senior pastor unexpectedly. A
Mm.
friend of mine, um, his name's Brian
Wow.
Dunnigan, an amazing pastor and leader, and our church kind of went into a season of, I mean, I would just call it grief, disillusion.
Hmm.
What just happened and where are we going and what does this mean? And to summarize the months after Brian's passing, I just witnessed in a very tangible way a church family standing on the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus in a way that was just so tangible. It was just right. I could see it in people's faces every Sunday as we were singing. We were not just going through the motions. We were clinging to the truths that we believe. And it was like in that moment for me, I realized just how foundational some of those beliefs are to our life as followers of Jesus. And I thought, man, I want to write a song that's essentially talking about that. And that's why the verse of the song, it opens up and says, "This has been our anchor in every generation through trial and storm. This has been our cornerstone." And those lyrics were inspired by the the multi generations I was looking at every Sunday.
Hmm.
And so this song is kind of, I guess creedal in the sense that it is just proclaiming Christ's life, death, and resurrection and the hope that we have in it. And the verses are just kind of these like anthems that darkness doesn't get the last say. We know how the story ends, and so we're going to proclaim it as we're singing this song. And it's been powerful to lead. The first time I led it, actually in a corporate setting, was in that church with that church family. And man, what a moment! Just getting to look those people in the face and say, "I'm not writing a song to inspire you. Your faith actually inspired me to write a song, and here's what it
Yeah.
is." You know, I
Wow.
barely I barely made it through the song. I feel like I was tearing up the whole time because 'cause I'm just looking at the people that have been a witness to the resurrection,
Yeah.
in a tangible way for me.
Wow. That's amazing. And we've got all the tracks, all the charts up at Loop Community and Song Select, so people should go check it
Yeah,
out. Also, just in time for Easter,
yeah,
coming
for
up here in
those
a couple weeks.
yeah, if you're looking for, a fresh new opener or,
Yeah.
it could be a number 1 or number 2 song in the set pretty easy. Um, it's definitely got that, like,
Yeah.
accessibility factor to it. Churches of all size can play it. Um, and it's a fun band song. If you go listen to it, like, when you get to the bridge, it's got these massive hits. When we were recording it, I was like, "Man, I wanna be a drummer or a bass player on this
Hmm.
song. It's just a lot of fun to lead." Um, so yeah, I hope go check it out.
Easter is the biggest Sunday of the year for worship leaders in churches. Any tips you'd give a worship leader who's trying to prepare everything?
Yeah, maybe I mean, I'm reminding myself, I think I think "Don't overthink it" can be helpful on Easter.
Mm. Yeah.
Because I think we all feel this pressure of, like, because it's the biggest Sunday, I've everything has to be the best it's ever been, and at times that drove me to do things that were a little bit outside of what was the wisest thing to do, like, maybe new songs, on an Easter Sunday. Everybody's there, they're amped because of the resurrection of Jesus, and then I've just given them all these songs that they can't keep up with because they don't know them. you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I usually think along the lines of s a fresh element, a song, a creative element of some sort, and
Yeah.
then give the people the staples, the ones they know by heart. That can just be a
Yep.
really good play on Easter in the sense of, like, all the people of your church are gonna know those songs super well. Visitors who don't know any of the songs, at least they'll be hearing the church sing its, best anthems.
Yeah. That's a great tip. So I know you're brand new to the Franklin area. You kind of got a new life going now.
Yeah.
What does a typical week look like for you? Or what does a typical day look like for you? Are you up early? Are you like the breakfast guy? Are you like making all the pancakes for the kids? Are you doing school drop off? Like give us like an idea of like what does a day look like in your life?
Yeah, it's It's a little bit, each day is a little bit different. I think my weeks look similar, my days look different. In general, I I don't know that I'm a morning person, it's just the only time. I have 3 young boys, so
Uh,
it's my time. So, yeah, I'm an Americano by 6 or 6:30 AM in
yeah.
our little reading room, just getting a moment of prayer and solitude and respite before the
Before they
day.
wake up.
Before they wake up, thankfully, my 2 older boys are finally sleeping in a little bit. I felt like they were I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone else with kids feels like the earlier you wake up, they
Uh-huh.
somehow sense that you're awake and
They still beat you
they
somehow.
beat you. Yeah, you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna get up at 5:30." Then they're up at 5:30. Okay,
Yeah.
5. Then they're up at 5.
I know.
My
Why?
oldest
How is that possible? It is that literally happens with my daughter. So, what age did you notice that they start sleeping in a little bit?
my older 2 sons are 9 and 11, and
Okay.
I would say sometime in the last year and a half, they
Okay.
started I think it's when they started caring a little bit less if I was up, and they were just good,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Neither of them, like, sleep in super late, but now they're sleeping till 6:45 or 7.
Yeah. That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, so, I mean, I'm full on dad life right now. The last 2 evenings, I worked, at the church and then in the studio till about 4:30 or 5. I got home, changed clothes, grabbed my one of my sons, went to the baseball field for 2 hours. I'm assistant coaching both of their teams, and I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. I feel like we all need 1 or 2 things that when you're doing whatever it is, you just detach from life and ministry.
Hmm.
Coaching a team of 9-year-olds, you don't have any choice but to give them all of your time and attention because
Yeah.
it's wild and crazy. And yeah, so I love that. I love the time with my boys. I love, sports, and so it's been good. So I feel like most of my life is mixed between juggling family and ministry. I do now
Yeah.
get to songwrite. I'm in the studio right now about 3 days a week, which is something I've honestly prayed for and kinda worked towards for years. Um, and so I'm in a new rhythm with that, and I'm writing a
Yeah.
lot of songs for myself. I'm writing for other artists now as well, and that's just been it's been really rewarding. I'm just kinda pinching myself, thanking the Lord that, He gave me these dreams in some ways, I feel like years ago,
Yeah.
and then I just had to faithfully steward it for a long time.
Where do you write?
It's different almost every day. So I'm in a friend's studio right now. I'm signed with Integrity's my publisher, so they have a couple of writing rooms. So
Cool.
usually if they're setting the rights up, we'll write at Integrity's, building. And then if I'm writing with a producer, most producers I feel like prefer to work out of their own space because 'cause they've got
Yeah.
their gear,
Yeah.
their setup. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with a
Do
guy
you?
named Kyle Lee and Brian Fowler, friends of mine today.
Cool.
We're at Kyle's place, which is just down the road, so
Do you
been
write
great.
at home? Are you able to write at home with kids at home?
I do, it's harder because of that. I have a writing room. I don't really have a full-on studio. I've got, like, a study with a lot of books in it, some good lighting, and just a upright piano, and
Hmm.
I feel like I do most of my I don't know what you'd call it, cultivating in that room. I don't finish most of my songs, but that's where I start most of them, and so,
Mm.
I try to get in there for a little bit every day, or if I miss a few days, maybe probably in there a few hours a week, and it's almost just like a prayer room too. Like I'm not too concerned with what's coming out. I'm just trying to like mine out my heart, find what ideas and prayers do I want to say.
Yeah.
And I brought one of those to this right
Mm.
today, just a little nugget. And
Yeah.
the song today is not going to end up anything like the idea I brought.
Yeah.
But having that idea to start the song with, for songwriters is so helpful.
Yeah. I think it'd be very nice to have a writing room to go to, like that you actually like drive to, like when you're going to the integrity offices and you're writing there. I feel like that would be really nice because it's almost like you're going to work. Like this is like a
Yeah.
setup meeting. You have to be there. There's no excuses really to like bail. I have
Yep.
a hard time writing at home with young kids because all my kids are under 5, and it's just they're always here and they're loud, and it's kind of hard to get into the writing mindset.
Yeah, for sure. And my youngest son, I mean, as soon as I start playing the piano, if he's anywhere in the house, he hears it. He just started walking and he is like beelining because he
Yeah.
loves to sit and bang on the piano.
Yeah.
And obviously that's like really cute, except when
Yeah.
you're actually trying to do work and then it's like the
Yeah.
most distracting. So yeah, we usually time up that with my wife being out. The 2 older ones are at school. Um,
Yeah.
you know, or I'll play really softly early in the morning, just when no one's awake.
Yeah.
It's thankfully that room does have doors on it.
Yeah. All of my writing voice memos have a screaming child in the background.
Exactly. I feel like that's where I'm at and most of my friends. I mean,
Brutal.
we're all kind of in that stage of life with young kids and, you
Yeah.
know, sometimes you get the best ideas when you're just in the
Yeah.
midst of life.
Right. Well, Aaron, I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. A lot of good nuggets here. And I want to encourage everybody to go check out your latest song. We've got
Thank
it
you.
all on Loop Community, all on CCLI. So go check it out. Aaron, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Matt. Enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, good to see you.
You too.
All right, guys, make sure you go check out Resurrection Hope. Go to Loop Community, find the tracks, the charts, go to Song Select, get the charts, and play this. Maybe consider playing the song at your church for Easter. It'd be a great, as Aaron was saying, it'd be a great number 1 or number 2 song in a set. So go check it out. Anyways, thanks for joining us for this Worship Fuel interview. Hit the subscribe button, comment below what you learned, and we'll see you next time.